Hello everyone, this is Alan Perez with the Media and Content team, and I'm excited to welcome you back to another episode of Mindset. In this episode, Set Schedule CEO Roy Deckel is joined by Wally Bressler, co-founder of Phone Sales Secrets. Wally shares his experiences working as a consultant and coach for real estate and other business professionals over the course of his 20-year career, specifically focusing on helping himself and other people overcome sales call reluctance, which is rooted in fear and uncertainty. Roy and Wally discuss the steps and processes that sales professionals can take in order to beat that fear and how it is necessary to help yourself in order to help your business. Hope you enjoy the episode.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Mindcast podcast. I am very excited today to have Wally Bressler with us. And I will, instead of me trying to even do justice and explain his background, I'll let Wally do it himself. So Wally, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks so much. Happy to have you here. So I grew up in New Hampshire, and most people don't know what that is. It's like way in the Northeast. And so anyway, went to school in upstate New York, Central New York, went to Hamilton College, graduated in 1990, went into the mutual fund industry for about 8 years, but I was kind of sick of corporate America at that point. So my best friend's husband owned a small real estate firm, and I joined him. I literally left work one day, just frustrated with the way things were going. And I said, hey, why do you do what you do? He says, well, what'd you do today? I said, well, I did a presentation contest. I thought I was going to come in first. I came in third. So I just kind of left work, and he's like, what'd you do? He says, well, I collected 2 commission checks. I rode my motorcycle out to the coast, had lunch, and came back. Sign me up. So anyway, I ended up getting my real estate license in June of 1998. And then I left and started my career as an agent in August of 1998. And over the next 14 months, I sold 72 houses, and was very fortunate. He was a really good guy, good trainer. He taught me a lot, made life very easy for me to do what I needed to do. And then, he decided he wanted to grow the business. And, I was a sales manager and trainer. And so probably over the next 6 years, we grew it to about a little over 400 transactions a year. And, we were number 2 with Coldwell Banker worldwide for several years. And then in 2006, I started coaching full time. And so I've been coaching real estate agents, since 2001, but full time since 2006. And so I did a little math. I've done about 25,000 live trainings, video trainings, one-on-one coaching calls. And I specialize in real estate industry, but I've worked with insurance brokers as well as people in the digital marketing space. And then recently, I started helping salespeople overcome sales call reluctance, because I actually suffered from it for 10 years myself. And just having lots of clients who were excited about being an agent but just wouldn't pick up the phone. I really did a lot of research, looked at my own life, and did a lot of reading and research, and then started helping people overcome it themselves. And so I'm kind of doing both now.
Wow. All right. Well, I can already tell that one podcast is not going to be enough. So you are committed to come back again, and I'm going to bring it up again at the end.
I mean, if as long as everybody will have me. If you get bad responses, that may be an offer you don't want to keep. But yeah, I'd love to come back. Whatever you want to do.
Look, obviously, our primary, our company is Set Schedule, and you hit the core. Our technology is in the space of real estate, so I think there's a lot of interesting content here that I think be valuable both through the actually Set Schedule user base, but also obviously general the sales community in general. So I'll try to fly through a lot of questions that I have, but I guess I'll start with I guess the first natural question: what made you want to get into? I'm just curious to know, into coaching. Transitioning from production and going into coaching and helping other real estate agents.
It's funny you say that. My mom was a teacher, lifelong teacher. She taught for 1967 to 2008. So what's that? 41 years, long time. And my family always said, "Oh, you be a teacher, you be a teacher, you be a teacher." And oddly enough, I did. When I graduated from college in 1990, it was the second worst year since World War II to get a job. So I did go teach for a while. I went and substitute taught and helped out of the school, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I went and worked in the mutual fund industry and worked my way to the sales desk and finally became an agent. But, I found that I liked sales. I did enjoy it. I excelled at it, but I liked helping other people excel too, if that makes any sense. And it still is, it's fairly lucrative, but I think what I enjoyed most about it is that I could help people blossom and they could achieve their goals. And when they achieve their goals, I achieve my goals as well. Plus, from my perspective, selling houses is amazing. But I had 4 kids and I was looking to spend a little more time with my family and whatnot. And so it gave me the opportunity to still work hard, work a lot, but also spend a little more time with my kids. So speaking of, I learned a tough lesson. I mean, part of what cost me my first marriage was my only marriage was not managing my time well and not, being so committed to my real estate business and not really spending enough time with my family. So lots of lessons learned there that I pass on to my clients now too.
Wow. Okay. All right. And so you're the co-founder in Phone Sales Secrets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously the name is pretty self-explanatory. So let's just jump right to it, right? I mean, as they say, old-fashioned, the phone is your best friend, but it's kind of like ironic because I think that most of those people are afraid of the phone. Do you know why?
They are. Well, it's not the phone they're afraid of. It's actually what could happen on the phone that they're afraid of. It's going to take a little while to explain. Do I have a minute or so to do this? I don't know what your thoughts are, but I got to kind of go back a little bit in history of my own life to help you understand how I kind of identified this.
Go for it. So we can
Okay.
rewind and be kind. Yeah. So what's your history
Cool.
with the phone?
So back in 1998, I was junior in college. I took a job selling, I guess, small benefits policies for an organization called the Independent Order of Foresters, and they had a low, like $300-$400 program that gave families who didn't have a lot of money benefits with health and life insurance and stuff like that. And so I went to school with a girl and her dad. His name is Mr. Willie. Said, hey, you need to come work for me because I'm a gregarious guy. I'm outgoing, I mean. So and so I wouldn't work with him, and I was there for the summer, and I made one sale. And I just was deathly afraid of the phone. I remember him coming to me one day. He's like, hey, this isn't working out for you. He goes, okay, well, I think we got to go. So I never did anything there again. And, my parents were very safety oriented, get a job, get insurance, get a salary. They were, if you understand the DISC personality profile, very high S's, steadiness, consistency, what's utilitarian is good for everybody, right? So, and so when I got to college, even though I was offered a bunch of sales jobs, I went and took a job that paid me a salary, that gave me insurance and all that other stuff, But as I worked my way through coaching, I couldn't figure out why people weren't making phone calls. I mean, I would sit with somebody, I'd coach with them, and we'd have a call, and I'd be like, okay, how'd your prospecting go this week? They're like, it didn't. I'm like, okay, why? They're like, they let everything else happen, And so after a while, I started kind of looking into it, and then I kind of looked at my own life. And so what I realized is that there are certain traumas that happen when we're younger that, they basically, they activate our sympathetic nervous system. So there's fight and there's flight, right? And so when certain young people face a trauma or something that's painful, they're fighters. I use the example of Frank Shamrock, a UFC fighter, kicked the crap out of people for his whole life because he just wanted to fight, And then there's the flight people, which is I was one of those flight people. And so, I had an eating disorder from the age of 6 because one of my parents' strategies for rearing me was to put me to bed without dinner when I was 4 and 5 and 3. So I used to be worried that I wasn't going to eat. And then, I was sexually abused when I was 10, and then started looking at pornography when I was 11, started having sex consistently when I was 12. And so bullied mercilessly at school. So by the time I was 13, I had a horrible self-image, right? I didn't believe in myself, didn't love myself. And I got to the point where I didn't want to put myself into situations where my feelings could get hurt. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And so some people are bullied, some people are physically abused, psychologically abused, emotionally abused, sexually abused. Let's just say your dad said, hey, Roy, the Deckel family, nothing good ever happens to them. So don't go try anything good because you're just not going to succeed at it. Sometimes it's that kind of programming. Sometimes it's we observe something. I tell the story. I thought I was poor my entire life for the longest time, as a child, at least, because I would go to school and kids had Levi's jeans and Timberland boots, and I had Sears and Roebuck pants and no-name sneakers and a coat my grandfather wore, So I would see them dressed at school. I even had lunch envy. They'd have nicer lunch. They had snack cakes and candy and all kinds of stuff. I had a sandwich and an apple, And so we create these hidden identities based on what happens in these hidden identities, or what now speak to us. And so nobody knows them. Sometimes we don't even know what they are, but what they do is they keep us from picking up the phone for fear of being embarrassed, for fear of having our feelings hurt, for fear of hurting somebody else's feelings, for fear of failure, sometimes for fear of success, for fear of what somebody's going to think of us. Okay. And so when we have something that's unresolved and it's created this this blockage in our subconscious and our mind, we're just not going to pick up the phone. And so it's funny, it's about picking up the phone, but it's really not about picking up the phone. Meaning, the thing that's causing people to not want to make phone calls has nothing to do with the phone itself. It's how they feel about themselves and what they believe to be true about themselves, and their self-esteem and their self-worth as a result of what happened at some point when they were growing up. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And so I did that for my own research, for my own life, and it took me 10 years to overcome it. And then I've been working with people now, and I've helped scores of people overcome it by finding that problem and then helping them resolve it.
So obviously, let me ask you this, because I want to zoom in on this question, because obviously I'm very passionate about the subject, and it's interesting to me from coaching or from mentoring standpoint. How do you get to take Joe or Mary that is terrified from the phone in 3 bullet points? How do you get them to actually exercise, whatever call it 3, like I said, 3 bullet points, to exercise to overcome that fear and to just give it a chance, right? And hopefully see results. What would be your bullet points plan for that, Joe and Mary?
So if I may, Roy, can I make a quick distinction? And then I'm going to give you 5 bullet points, but they're not really long bullet points. Is that okay?
I like how you don't like to follow questions. I love it. That's very good. No, sure.
I'm sorry. What did you say? What did you say?
I said I like how you don't want to follow questions. I love it because it creates it creates a very organic narrative. I like it. I'm being funny about it.
The one thing my mother hated about me as a child is the one thing I love about myself is I get to answer a question with a question. It's perfect. So it really, honestly, it is 5 points, and that's the only reason I asked for permission for that. So here's real quickly. There's really 2 types of call reluctance. The first type of call reluctance is when a lot of people have when they first get in the business. They don't know what to say, when to say it, how to say it. They're not confident in the value they deliver, and they can't really articulate, what they need to say in order to get good results. But those folks, through practice and getting on the phone and group calls and mentoring, they're able to get on the phone and do it, right? May take them a month or 2, but eventually they work through it. But for 40% of existing salespeople and 80% of new salespeople, it's all about that emotional side of things. And so that's where the bigger problem exists. So here's your 3 bullet points plus 2. So the first one is awareness. I got to go and find out what it is that's causing this, right? You can't overcome an enemy. You can't beat a foe that you don't know exists. So you got to become aware of what was it that caused you to put yourself in a position where you avoided situations where you could experience pain. Right, emotional pain, psychological pain, anything like that. So the second thing is once I'm aware of what it is, then I have to go ahead and then start getting comfortable with the emotions that come up with that. So anxiety, fear, panic, something like that, and whatnot. And then it's kind of like a define and identify thing. So identify what the emotion is, and then define where it's coming from, and then become mindful or present. Right? We focus on the future, we get anxious about not being able to control the future. We focus on the past, we get depressed because of the stuff that happened that we couldn't control. But when I'm present and I'm mindful and I'm focusing just on now, I can't feel either of those. And that actually lets the feeling pass, right? So the third part is reprogramming your brain. Things like affirmations, reading books that are specifically, get directed at the challenges you might be having, journaling, exercise, visualization, things that take your brain, and rather than you say people aren't going to want to talk to me, now you're saying, hey, listen, people want to talk to me, because I add a lot of value. I've got a client that I work with that when he was 10 years old, he went to the new kid's house on the block, and on the 3rd day in a row that he went over, the kid's older brother said, hey, you don't have to come over here every day. I'm saying? You don't have to come here every day. And immediately he planted the seed that he was bothering them. And so from that day forward, he watered that seed. And now 50 years old, he feels like he's bothering people when he calls them. All from that simple little interaction, that identity he created about himself. So we've got to reprogram our belief system about who we are and what we're capable of. And it happens faster than you would think. It takes some time, but it happens faster than you would think. And then step 4 is figuring out what drives you. right? What is it that drives you, right? Not just, money and stuff like that, but really what drives you. Daniel Pink talks about autonomy and mastery and purpose. What do I have to do to become autonomous and not need anybody's help? And then what do I have to master in order to be super successful? And lastly, the fifth bullet point is figuring out what your why is. And most people's whys are, a lot of people confuse what's and whys, right? Our children, they're a what? A car, brand new car, house, vacation, money in the bank, whatever. Those are all what's. The why is something you can affect, AFFECT, something you can affect the changeover, right? So your children are what? Well, what's your why for children? Well, my why for my children might be, hey, listen, I'm going to make enough money to put a trust fund together so that my kids will never have to worry about money again. Okay. And because it's often rooted in pain that you experienced, that you use that as the launching pad so that you'll do everything you need to do to make sure that those kids never have to worry about money again. Okay. And so it's just awareness, then define, identify, become present, reprogram, find out what drives you, and then figure out your why.
Love it. I had to give it applause because I think this in itself is a framework of a great social clip, right? I mean, I think everybody can use that 5 points. I mean, everyone that looks at Facebook should spend the time. I mean, and has a business, so I need desire to build a business should listen to this. So I agree with it 100%. And on that note, let me ask you a simple question. Do you think that everybody, or do you think that everybody can overcome the reluctance of self?
1000% if you want to. It is completely in your power. 100%. If you've ever seen the Will Smith video, it's about 3.5 minute video called "Fault versus Responsibility."
No, actually, I missed that.
You got to check it out, because what he talks about the whole process of, hey, listen, how we got here in our life, for whatever challenge you might be having, it's likely not our fault. But now that we know it's there, it's our responsibility to fix it and take care of it, right? But I'm telling you with unerring certainty that if you want to do it and do the work, it can happen for you. Doesn't matter what age you are, doesn't matter what happened in your life, you can absolutely overcome it if you want to.
Okay. So, our great producers put a question here in place, and I really think it's. I think some of it we addressed before, but I think it's valuable for you to reiterate some of it. How was your life and background shaped your strategy for your coaching career, basically?
Well, it's interesting. It's a great question. How can I say this? I know my parents loved me. They loved my brother, loved my sister. They just weren't terribly well equipped at doing what they needed to do to help us grow individually, to teach us how to protect ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So there's lots of things that happen that where I lived my life in fear for a long time. You know what I'm saying? I made a lot of bad choices rooted in fear. I've probably blown $4 million in my life because I really had no value in money. I made a lot of bad decisions. And so part of my and the pain associated with that. So part of my coaching strategy is built around helping people make good decisions, right? Make the right decisions at the right time in the right order. And if you make a bad decision, don't kill yourself over it, just learn, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then, just really helping people make really, really good decisions about their business. And when you go through a lot of the stuff that I went through, I had porn addiction, sex addiction, food addiction, money addiction. I mean, I was, when you have addictions, you continually do things in those areas that are geared towards making the pain go away. So you don't think about the future. You just think about, how do I stop feeling bad right now? And many of those ways is by re-engaging in the addiction. So, but when I coach people, I'm like, let's look at the future. Let's see what the future looks like. And let's reverse engineer ourselves back to current day. We call it a strategic plan. And then we'll look at how much money you have, how much time you have, how much human capital you have. And let's take those things and apply them to what we can do right now. And let's move your business forward now. And then let's make sure that everything is 100% attached to where we're going down the road. So there's no priority confusion. There's no money confusion. There's no time confusion. And you're working on the right things in the right order to get where you want to go.
Yeah. It's funny. I want to say it's deep, but you know what? That's where you find your why, usually deep inside. So I mean, that's crazy good. What do you think? What do you think a salesman? What tangible, intangible assets a salesman has to possess in order to be a good salesman?
I think intangible, or you said intangible, intangible?
Tangible and intangible.
Okay, so from an intangible standpoint, I think to be a good salesperson, first and foremost, I think you need to have empathy. right? Your ability to identify with people and understand what makes them tick and what they've gone through is really, one of the key ingredients to, being able to move the sales process along and speak to people in a language that they understand. You need to be able to build rapport with people, and not just, creating affinity by finding things that are similar between you and that other person, but, kind of like Tony Robbins talks about, physiologically, if you're sitting across the table with them, matching and mirroring, facing and leading, really trying to get in physical, connection with those people. Another thing is resilience. You got to be resilient. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're going to hear more no's than yeses. And so you've got to be able to work through the challenges. And the only challenge, the bad thing about resilience is it's great, but it only comes through defeat and challenges and tough things, So, and what else intangibly? I think you need to be naturally curious. You have to be willing and want to ask questions. And if somebody says to you, geez, we just don't have the money. Okay, if it's a buyer, well, who told you didn't have the money? How much money do you have? How much money do you think you need? If I can find you a home with the money that you had, would that work for you? You know what I'm saying? So, being able to ask good questions and peel back the layers of the onion, that's so from an intangible standpoint. I mean, those are the big ones for me. There's other ones, from a tangible standpoint, I think you need to be an articulate person. You know what I'm saying? I think you need to really, speak well and be able to use transitions when you talk to people so that you don't lose them and whatnot. I don't know if this is intangible or intangible, but I think emotional intelligence is super important, being able to read between the lines, being able to look at a situation and in the back of your mind, kind of assess what's going on so that you can handle it properly, not insult somebody, but actually give them the results that they're looking for. I'm a college graduate. I think my college degree helped me. There's lots of people that argue that, that you don't need to go to college, and that's fine, but you do need to be an intelligent person. You need to read, personal development books, business books, things that are going to help you grow as a person. And the more topics you're familiar with, the more topics you can talk to people about, the more comfortable you can become with them, for sure. I think you need to have good scripts and dialogues and know what to say, when to say it, and how to say it. And that doesn't mean just over the phone, but also good presentations. What I'm saying? It doesn't have to be this big, elaborate, 80-pound, presentation and stuff like that. You just need to be able to take people through a sales process and from beginning to end and handle as many objections before they come up, so that when it comes time to, as Alec Baldwin said, and Glenn Ross, which is, get them to sign on the line which is dotted, that you've gotten yourself to that point, so I think you have to have a system, a plan. Like wing it just doesn't work. So I would, at first blush, without thinking a whole lot about it, those are the things that come to mind.
Gotcha. And do you believe that coffee is for closers?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really drink coffee, so, and I think I'm a closer, so, but, yeah.
Got it.
I'd like
All
to,
right.
yeah, put that coffee down. Yep, I love that.
So let me ask you this. So you said that you specialize or you have obviously this core market in a real estate industry, which is huge. I mean, it's a phenomenal industry. I mean, it's a broad industry with a lot of agents. And I'm just curious to know, maybe, I guess you can expand the answer to general professions, but I guess I'm asking really, as you zoom in on the real estate industry, what is your strategy to improve this solopreneur or maybe a small business that is looking to create more efficiencies and dial in their schedule? What is your strategy to help them get there?
So, prescription before diagnosis is malpractice, right? So before I would do anything and give anybody one suggestion about their business that I felt was a concrete decision, I'd want to look at their business. One of the things we do is send out a 20-page questionnaire to people and say, hey, answer these questions and tell us what you do and don't know about your business and what you do and don't know about your market. And then we find out where all the holes are. And so, kind of in Dan, not Dan Kennedy, I'm sorry, in Jay Abraham, strategy, right? Get everything you can out of all you got. Let's look at everything you're doing and let's just make sure that, number one, if it's good, that we maximize it, we optimize it, we're getting good results. And then if it's not working, do we fix it or do we get rid of it? And then we get to the point where, we build a foundation and make sure that we understand, your tracking is in place and your finances are in place, and that, the people who are on your team are not only the right people, but they're in the right seats on the bus. And we just make sure that you've got a good foundation, that you understand how to prospect, understand how to sell, and that you understand the basic numbers of your business. Okay. And then when we've got that figured out, then we say, okay, let's start working at moving you to the next level of where you want to be. I mean, how long have you been in the business now?
I've been in business since I was a year old, but
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Setscape since 2015. So
Okay.
yeah, 6
You've
years.
been in real estate since when?
What's that?
You've been in real estate since when?
Well, the core product is since 2006, 15.
Okay, so quite a long time. So 15 years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you know that revenue is what drives everything else, right?
Mhm.
Okay, and
Yes.
you have to bring revenue. You know, Gary Keller talks to lead with revenue. Like you need revenue to be able to make bigger decisions about your business. And so, but that being said, you know, you have to know where you're going. So that's why we put that strategic plan in place. And then most, obviously, 99% of the real estate agents I've spoken to said that their goal is to become the true CEO of their company, which means at some point that company makes money whether they work or not, right? And they have the ability to go do something else, right? And so once we figure out what's what and create a good foundation, and once we have a long-term plan, we reverse engineer back to current day, and now we're working on building their business and doing the things they need to do to replace themselves in their business, step by step, getting all the non-dollar productive activities off their plate, get the prospecting off their plate, get buyers off their plate, get listings off their plate, find somebody to run their business. You know what I'm saying? And that number of sales is different for everybody based on their marketplace, but at some point there is a dollar amount that is going to allow them to step out of their business. And along the way, we're creating core capital that we can put money in the bank so that, you know, I like my clients to get 6 months of personal expenses and 6 months of business expenses in the bank, because if you go back to the Great Recession, the average time on market was 121 days, right? That's a long time for a home to sell. So if you can get 6 months and you had to get back into sales, you would be able to do it and not really miss a beat. So, you know, again, it's what do you know about your business? What do you know about your market? Let's take everything and let's lay it all on the table. Let's figure out what's working. Let's make sure it's working great. What's not working, we get rid of or fix. And then we say, okay, we're going out 10 years. Let's come back to today and let's work on those things that slowly get you out of your business so that 10 years from now, you're doing what you want to do. And if I want to add one thing, I say to people all the time, you know, what's your goal? Well, I don't ever want to stop selling houses. I would love selling houses. I'm like, hey, that's fine. But there's a difference between wanting to sell houses and having to sell houses. And that difference is what you do to plan for the future and make sure that you're in good shape down the road.
Okay. All right. So it's interesting because we're kind of like zoomed in and zoom out from the real estate industry, but I want to zoom back into the real estate industry. And again, you can expand it if you want to cover, you know, other business professions. But, you know, we talked about the phone, we talk about, you know, time management, efficiency. We talked about business planning, business plan. Social media is a big part of it now. I mean, these days, and it's a very obviously crowded ecosystem. But I'm curious to know what does solid media strategy, so social media basically plan, what does it do for a small business owner in your opinion?
Well, I mean, you can't not be on. You have to be on social media these days if you're going to compete, right? And so, you know, if you buy into this, the KLT, which is the know, like, and trust, right? You know, you need people will do business with those they know, like, and trust, and that is created through rapport, but also through credibility and authority, right? You know, if you're on social media and you're doing what you need to do consistently, you can build that credibility, you can build that authority, not by trying to sell people over and over again, but just by giving people information, educating them, you know, maybe even entertaining them a little bit, letting them find out who you are, you know, you know, there's a blend, if you will, of business and personal stuff. You know, you want people to be able to connect with you, not just as a business person, but also as an individual, right? You know, people want to do business with those that they know, like, and trust. And, you know, part of that is what are your hobbies? What kind of fun things do you do? You know, what's your daily life like? You know what I'm saying? And, you know, what's your outward identity? Not so much your internal identities, what's your outward identity? You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you're fit, and you show people that you're fit and they see some of your workouts on there, then you're gonna identify with people who are fit or who want to be fit, you know, something of that nature. What I have my clients do, at least when they get started, is listen, get a Facebook page, you know, ideally, maybe a group page so you can not limit yourself to 5,000 people, and just be consistent, you know. And what that means is, you know, you're going to put out a couple of education videos a week. You know, you're going to maybe show a newsworthy video once a week. Publish articles that are germane to your area, to your business, so that you can show that you're educating people on things. Maybe some personal interest stuff. And then included in that is every listing you take, every home you put under agreement, testimonials, and and just kind of rotate through it, what I'm saying? So it's human interest, it's business related, it's testimonial, and you just do that on a consistent basis so that you can connect with people, not just who are past clients in Sphere, but also try and get every one of your leads in there too. So they can see you, so they can, so when you pop on for 3 minutes and you say, hey, here's the market update for, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Here's what's happening in our area. And by the way, if you click on the PDF below here, there's a market report for you. Or, hey, listen, you need to figure out how to get a new roof. This is what you need to know to get a new roof, stuff like that. Maybe even interview your vendors and use their expertise, to build affinity for you. But, above and beyond that, if you really want a huge presence, you either have to hire somebody who's a social media expert on staff or find somebody else who can help you start, moving out to LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever else you think you want to go,
Mm-hmm.
and then connect it with maybe some of your organic stuff through your website. But that's kind of generically what I like folks to do to get started.
Gotcha. Well, it's interesting you mentioned if you don't have the bandwidth or the know-how, then hire, and that actually leads me to my next question, because that's where you can make tremendous amount of, or you can either be extremely successful or you can crush your business by hiring wrong, right? So what are your do's and do nots for hiring people for your small business?
First thing is just don't hire somebody because you like them, and just don't hire somebody because they're your family member or friend. I would say that's probably the biggest mistake most people make, is that, you get to the point where you're busy, you're probably doing two plus houses a month and you're feeling it and you need some help, and so you grab the most familiar, the easiest person to hire. And that's usually the person who has the same last name as you or a friend of yours, because you think, oh, that's an easy transition. I like this person. I don't need to get to know them. I can trust them. And usually it explodes. What I'm saying? It almost never works. Right? Because the person you hire who knows you thinks one of two things: either, I'm friends with Roy. Roy won't care if I come in late. Roy won't care if I leave early. Right? Roy doesn't go, or they'll be like, that's, they could, but they could also be hyper responsive because I love Roy and care about Roy. But usually it's the second one, and then it makes it harder to fire that person when they don't do a good job, So I think, so here's, first of all, I think there's a right order to hire people with it. What I'm saying? I really think that, you have to hire people in the right order. Like, people run out and get buyer's agents as soon as they can because they want to get out of selling buyers. And I get it. But, as soon as you bring on buyer's agents, your time availability gets murdered. I mean, it gets sucked up, what I'm saying? And so what happens now is you're spending a lot of time helping buyer's agents and train them and working with them. And you're only getting 50 cents in the dollar when they sell a house, or you're giving deals completely over to them and cutting into your earning power. So like I said before, I like hire an admin first, then hire an inside sales agent, get non-dollar productive activities first, then get the prospecting off your plate, then hire buyer's agents so that they can take over the buyer sides, then hand over the listing, because that's probably one of the hardest parts, and that's likely where you're going to make most of your money the easiest. And then finally hire somebody to run your business. And usually that listing job and that hiring somebody to run your business is somebody usually groomed from within. Okay. Don't ever hire anybody without giving them a personality test, and maybe even taking them through the predictable success model to find out which one of the four, criteria they possess. I like the DISC personality profile. Make sure you have at least one full sales cycle of that person's income in the bank that you don't need to touch. Because one of the worst things you can do is hire somebody, and this kills them and you, is to not be able to pay them because you didn't have enough money because you thought a closing was going to happen. So make sure you've got 4 months worth of income to pay those people in the bank. Have a job description. If you don't have a job description, go get a job description from somebody. Make sure you know what it means to hire somebody. A lot of people just hire somebody and they don't think about the rules and laws of their state, or how they get paid, or and then from that standpoint, you say something wrong, you do something wrong, what I'm saying? And so things can happen that can bite you in the butt. I think it's important to have good relationships with the people that are on your team, but I think you have to draw the line at how much you're going to tell them about what you do and how much you make and stuff like that, because that can come and bite you in the butt too. A lot of times it happens, your business is doing well, and all of a sudden the people that work with you are like, oh, well, you're making a lot of money, I want to make more money. What I'm saying? That happens too. So, and most importantly, have a plan. Like, when that person comes in, make them feel like they just showed up at a big corporation, right? They come in, they get a desk. There's an agenda for you to follow. they, signing contracts and all that stuff. Take them out to lunch with some of your vendors. Have a training plan for them. Like when they show up, make sure they show up to a job at a company and not like, okay, sit here, I'll be right back. You know what I'm saying? Like make sure they feel like they showed up at the right place so that they have the right mindset, Yeah. And don't try and fit the square peg into the round hole. Bad hire, this is Robert Half International, bad hire usually costs somebody about 30% of the person's annual income. So, you hire the wrong person, it's 30, you're between lost, wages paid, lost opportunities, lost time. It's like 30%, and for executive positions, it's 50. So it's a huge hit that people just don't realize.
That's crazy. That's a crazy statistic.
Once you know it, you measure twice before you cut and you hire the right person.
Yep, 100%. 100%. Let me ask you this, more of a kind of like a freestanding question, right? I mean, again, you have your wealth of information and experience, and I'm just curious to know, in your opinion, why do you think there's a tremendous churn in the real estate industry? In simple terms, why do you think so many people quit the real estate industry?
Because they have no clue what they're getting into. They have no idea what it takes to become a successful real estate agent. And it's not that they're not wanting. How can I explain this? It's not that they're going in like not taking it seriously. Does that make sense? Because I believe the people getting their license really want to get their license, but what you have to do for the first few years of your real estate industry requires a tremendous amount of work and commitment and willingness to, plow through stop signs, you know what I'm saying? And how competitive it is. You mentioned earlier how many agents there are. There's 1.51 million realtors in the country, and there's estimated 2 million real estate agents, more than we've ever had. When the market fell apart back in 2006-7, we only got to 1.41 million realtors. So we're way over that, and even in a smaller number of homes sold, so it's super competitive. And so number one, I don't think they understand what it takes. People get into the business because they want the 3 freedoms, right? They want time freedom, money freedom, and location freedom. But they don't realize that those freedoms come at a huge cost. You've got to prospect your butt off. You've got to call people you don't know. You've got to get leads coming in the door. You've got to manage your time well. Real estate is really the only business where when you get into the business, you have no clients and no products to sell, right? You got nothing. You're literally creating it from ground zero. You got to get leads. You got to manage your time. You got to get training, right? And you got to start working on the things that are bring money in the door. And people don't, number one, I don't think they put enough money aside to weather the storm. Because if you're not set up with the right team and the right organization, it's average 6 to 9 months before somebody sells a home. Maybe less now with how crazy the market is, but even if it's 4 months, it's a long time. And number two, I don't think they know what they have to do and that they're committed to doing what it takes to be successful. Very few people like to prospect, but you have to prospect when you get started unless you have a huge sphere, And so I just don't think they understand what it takes, what you need to do. And here's the other thing, the best thing somebody could do when they got into the business was to join a team. Sure, you're giving up a decent amount of your commission, but you learn, right? You get trained, you get leads, you get, the security you need and all the other stuff around your business being taken care of. Because there's a lot of people that get out of the business and spend a truckload of money on lead generation, hiring ISAs too soon, and all kinds of other stuff that they shouldn't be spending money on, and nobody tells them not to spend the money on it. And so they're out of money and they can't continue to move forward even though they want to, because they just make so many mistakes, which were probably avoidable if they had somebody mentoring them.
I want to say amen to that. That's a phenomenal answer. Obviously, I could agree more.
Thank you. And listen, I'm not being mean spirited. Like I want, and part of the reason I do phone sales secrets is because I want everybody to be able to create the life that they want for themselves and their family. It's usually 6 figures. Roy, $100,000 is like the first stop on the goal train for people. I want everybody to go make $100,000 in real estate. I really do. But the question is are you willing to do what it takes? And for some people, part of that may be clearing out some old habits, some old programming in order to put themselves in position to be able to do that, and you got to be willing to do that too. It took me 10 years to get there. 10 years.
Yeah. No, I believe me, I can relate. Everybody looks at that guy that looks chiseled with a six-pack in the gym and say, I need to have the six-pack. Why don't I have the six-pack? I just signed out for personal training a week ago and I should have the same six-pack that he has. So everybody wants to get to the end result of to this end goal, right? But there's a tremendous amount of very, very difficult bridge that everybody needs to walk through to get to this end result. And many people don't see it. So
agreed.
So let me, if you're willing to play this game with me, and again, I mean, just because you said that your core competency is in the real estate and the background of real estate, I just want you to speak to this average Joe, or not average Joe, but to Joe. Okay, it's just a Joe that is thinking about the idea of becoming a real estate agent, and Joe heard that you can make a killing by getting a real estate license, and you just need to get your license done, register with a broker, and off you go. I want you to talk to that Joe and or Mary and look at them and say, Joe and Mary, if this is what you think, don't get into real estate. What are the key points, that the dilemmas that they need to watch or to really analyze before they jump in? Because once they jump in, these are the things they're going to have to deal with on a daily basis.
Right. So that's a great question. And where my mind goes first is, if you're married or you have a significant other, make sure that they're on board with it. Because your life is going to change. I'm saying? You've got to work weekends. You've got to work evenings. You're working when a lot of people aren't, because you have to be working with them, because that's when they're available to go look at houses or to meet with you to sell their home. So first and foremost, if you're in a committed relationship, make sure that person's on board with the fact that how you're going to work, when you're going to work, the time availability you have is going to change. Number one. Number two, if you think that you're going to be able to do what you want, when you want, how you want, right off the bat, without doing the work that you need to do, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. Right? I think a lot of people feel that they can just come in and I'm self-employed, so I can go to work at 10, I can come home at 4, and I can do whatever I want to do. And you can, but you're not going to be a real estate agent for long. I think if you think that it's just going to be this, this big love fest, where everything's going to work out great and everything's going to be happy, and you go and show somebody a house, because you hear a lot of people, hey, I become a real estate agent because I love looking at houses. That's a great thing. I love doing that. Like, that is that much of the real estate business, right? Looking at houses, that is the easiest part of the job. Cracking open the door and let somebody look at a house, that's easy. That's not where we earn our money as agents, So, I would be very clear and say, listen, hey, Bob and Mary, or Joe and Mary, make sure that you understand that this is a business and you're in business for yourself, and you're in charge of every aspect of your business. Okay. And, you say what goes, and, make sure that you're willing to do what it takes. Make sure you're willing to be on the phone 2 to 3 hours a day. Make sure you're willing to learn from other people and apply what other people learn. Make sure you're coachable. Make sure you find people who've had success so you can mirror their success. You know what I'm saying? And if you think you're just going to come in and sit down and all your friends are going to buy a house from you, and everybody you know is going to buy or sell their house from you, and that you're just going to bump into people and they're going to hear you're a real estate agent and they're just going to roll over and have them buy and sell a house. And if you think you're going to make a truckload of money out of the gate and whatnot without doing the necessary work, then it's gonna be a long haul. It's gonna be a short trip, I guess. So.
Well, it was great having you here. Like I said at the beginning, this is not enough time. We need to do it again. So if you're game, we'll have you again on the show.
Love you, Roy. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed myself. I hope I added the value you were looking for me to add to your podcast today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Cool. Thank you.